So today we're going to talk about how we can restore confidence in carbon credit markets using cloud-native geospatial technology. I want us to imagine a world where there's standardized benchmarks and easier data access to key data sources like LiDAR that provide insights. So we all here should know that nature is a critical climate solution and part of the path to mitigating climate change, and forests are deeply important. Forests contain a lot of biodiversity, 80% of amphibians, 70% of birds, and we can protect them in part by using forest carbon credit projects. They're not perfect. There's a lot of interest in them, but there's still some skepticism. So what can we do to make it better? We can quantify forest carbon credit projects with baselines. These have seen a lot of changes in the past few years being accepted with registries. You can use remote sensing data. Basically, you want to quantify how much more biomass is growing because it's protected by a project as compared to other areas. Cloud native technologies and open data are best friends, and they've made accessing data to understand forest carbon projects really accessible, especially data that comes from satellite providers and is level 2 and level 3. We can use data from Landsat and Sentinel to make canopy height models, and these are a proxy for biomass. And these are really important because these are a key input into baselines, which input how many credits a project should receive. So we can run these models over many places, but we're asking these models to do a lot for us. These projects are spread all across the globe, and some of these projects are the baby trees where we have to measure growth, and then some of these are the mature trees. But what could benefit the forest carbon credit market? These are really complex, so we're going to focus on some technology aspects that this community has helped with and we could continue to help with, and not really touch on the policy and econ side. But from a technology perspective, what can we do more of in terms of transparency and standardization? Well, I hope you all are thinking, because I am too. What is ground truth? This is a big question. It's hard. In terms of forests, there's two ways we understand ground truth and can validate our remote sensing-based models. One of them is from field plots, and another one is from LiDAR data. Field plots are very costly, but they're super valuable. They involve people going and literally measuring trees. There's open source data for field plots that comes from government and academic research institutes, and some of it is proprietary and not accessible. LiDAR is also another proxy for ground truth, and you can process LiDAR to get canopy height models. Again, this data, it's super valuable. It exists in the open, but it's in disparate formats and disparate places, and it's really hard to wrangle. Those are two key data sources for validation, and it's really important to validate our models because you're getting, we're looking at the same area here, and these are 4 open source models, and they're saying there's different estimates for biomass, and that could eventually lead to some confusion with how many credits the project should receive. So where does cloud native all fit in? I think you hopefully know where I'm going. We can make it easier to access this data, particularly LiDAR and field plots. So imagine a world where all of this data didn't live in disparate places. It lived in source cooperative, and it lived in a stack catalog any user could access. And I'm talking about both the raw cloud-optimized files, and this is maybe more controversial, but the processed files converted to canopy height as well, so it's easier for people to work with. Once this ground truth data is accessible, users can go to a common GitHub repo and do benchmarking that's understandable and transparent across the industry with real project boundaries. I think we've heard a lot about benchmarking already. Benchmarking is common across computer vision. It's common in the weather space. Field boundaries of the world is a huge effort ongoing right now that's relevant, but benchmarking really requires the community. For this to work, benchmarking needs to be established by a set of standards brought forward by academia, industry, and nonprofits for the good of our planet. We can't just build these things and hope they work. It needs to be a really collaborative effort. So I'm hoping we as a community can continue to lower the barrier to entry for data access, especially with LiDAR data. It's really silly that companies or nonprofits are processing the same data in a similar way and just putting it on private cloud buckets. It should live in one place in the open. I want to thank and acknowledge the conference organizers, my coworkers at Pachama, the open source community, and the trees.